Sometimes strange things happen even in the safest part of your house. This is what a man shouted when he saw what looked like a ball thrown in his kitchen. Frank had just returned home after a long, exhausting day. He headed to the fridge, planning to make a quick sandwich, when something on the floor caught his attention. For a moment, he thought maybe a slice of bread had fallen from the counter, but no. This round thing was much smaller than a loaf of bread. There was a ball lying on his kitchen floor. Where did it come from? Frank didn't have any children, and the only nearby place frequented by young people was the university across the street. None of it made sense, but what really worried Frank was how strange the little ball was. It wasn't just lying there. It seemed like something was stuck to it for reasons he couldn't explain. The sight made his skin crawl, yet he couldn't ignore it. He bent down slowly, reaching out his hand, about to touch it. Then the thing moved. It opened up right in front of him, grew tiny legs, and darted away. Frank jumped back and let out a scream, startled by the sudden burst of movement. A moment later, he laughed at himself, a grown man afraid of a tiny creature in his kitchen. But it was clear now, this wasn't a ball or a rock, this was a living creature. The little creature disappeared under his kitchen cabinets. Frank felt his curiosity growing. He didn't have any pets, and animals weren't a normal part of his day, but he cared deeply about every creature, no matter how small. He didn't know what it was, but he knew he wanted to help, even if it just meant returning it safely outside. Frank lay down on the floor and looked under the cabinets. There it was again, curled up completely, motionless. He had never seen anything like it before. This time he approached more cautiously. Knowing it was alive made him gentler. He used a flashlight, but kept its beam dim and didn't shine it directly at the creature's face. The light revealed just enough. The small animal had skin that almost looked human, but here and there were pieces of something hard, like little sticks, sticking out of its body. Frank's chest tightened. It must be in pain. He thought of his friends Alan and Anita. They ran a wildlife sanctuary, helping injured or lost animals. If anyone could figure out what this was and how to help it, they were the right choice. Even while curled up, the little creature was trembling. It was scared and in pain. Frank didn't want to make things worse, so he grabbed a pair of thick winter gloves he owned and gently prepared to help. Frank was afraid that touching the little animal might hurt it even more, so he did everything he could to be gentle. He prepared a box and put a soft blanket inside to keep the creature warm and comfortable. Then came the hard part, actually getting the animal into the box. But this little creature was not ready to give up. Every time Frank got close, it ran away. The animal fled straight into a corner with no way out. Frank moved slowly, gave it a moment, then gently reached out and picked it up. He had seen the small, sharp teeth in its mouth before. That was one of the reasons he wore gloves, but the creature didn't lunge or try to bite. It just let him lift it and carefully place it inside the box, then curled up again into a small ball and didn't move at all. He took it straight to his friends, and the moment their eyes fell on the little animal, they were both left speechless. They had seen some tough cases over the years, but this one broke their hearts. Right away, they knew what the animal was. Alan and Anita were finally able to explain. What Frank had found was a hedgehog, but not just any hedgehog. This one was in a terrible condition. Frank had seen hedgehogs before, but this poor creature didn't look like the hedgehogs he remembered. The hard, stick-like things sticking out of its skin were its spines. They were supposed to cover and protect its whole body, but here, there were large areas that were completely bare. The missing spines didn't look like they had fallen out naturally. Anita gently suggested that they might have been pulled out, even though she hated to even say it. As for the remaining spines, they were most likely cut with scissors and became unnaturally short. Someone had deliberately hurt this hedgehog. Without its spines, it had no way to protect itself. And yet, maybe that wasn't the worst part. The little hedgehog was making faint squeaking sounds, quiet cries of pain, which told them that something else was happening inside. Alan and Anita had been doing this kind of work for years, and both agreed that this was the worst case they had ever seen. It even seemed that the little hedgehog, whom they now called Frankie, after the man who found him, had been used as a football. No one could say for sure, but the bruises and injuries he had were heartbreaking. They had no idea where he came from. Frank lived in the city center, and hedgehogs weren't exactly common in his neighborhood, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was helping him. He needed a vet quickly. When they examined him, they noticed that his gums had almost no color left, which was a sign that he could be just a few hours away from losing his life. Even though Anita was wearing gloves and handling him carefully, Frankie let out a soft whimper with every touch. He was in a lot of pain. They had treated hedgehogs before, so they knew which painkiller was safe. They gave him a few drops to help calm him down, just enough so he could rest and not feel every breath, and it also made it easier to move him carefully. They put him back in the same box that Frank had brought him in. Then they called the veterinarian who regularly works with the sanctuary. Fortunately, he was willing to meet them right away for a full examination at the vet clinic. It turned out that things were worse than expected. Frankie was suffering from severe dehydration. There was almost no fluid left in his small body. If Frank had decided to leave him alone that night, he wouldn't have survived until morning. The veterinarian also found that he had ringworm, which is a contagious skin infection. This explained the raw, sore skin and some of the missing quills. Fortunately, everyone was wearing gloves when handling him. Ringworm can spread to humans as well. They immediately started treating Frankie. They gave him fluids and prepared him for x-rays. Finally, some good news. He didn't have any broken bones. That was one thing they didn't have to worry about. His little body had already been through enough. Any victory, even a small one, meant a lot. The next few weeks will be critical. This is when they'll find out if Frankie will survive and maybe one day return to the wild. Once he was hydrated enough, the vet sent him home with Alan and Anita. He started eating a little more each day. His skin was still in bad shape, but healing would take time, months even. But he was getting better, and that's what mattered. Frankie really started to improve, slowly but steadily. His energy came back. He started making noises at night, playing a little, and moving with more confidence. Every time they heard him, saw him exploring, or noticed his curiosity returning, it felt like a small miracle. Every little sound he made was a victory. Frank stopped by to visit Frankie and check on him, and he was honestly shocked at how much the little hedgehog had improved. His skin had healed, and in some places, his quills even started to grow back. Everyone hoped that, over time, they would all return. Without those quills, Frankie can't return to the wild. He wouldn't have any way to defend himself from predators. They tried to prepare him for life in the wild by giving him some live worms to hunt, just to see how he would react. But instead of showing interest, Frankie got scared. He backed away and crawled into the tunnel in his cage, refusing even to look at them. He clearly preferred fruit and cat food. Here, Alan and Anita began to wonder, was Frankie ever really wild? At any point? Could he have been someone's pet that got lost? Or worse, did the person who was caring for him ever hurt him? At some point, he might never know. As much as they hoped to prepare Frankie for release, it became more and more clear that it wasn't going to happen. It's been almost a whole year since Frank first found that ball in his kitchen. A year is a long time for a hedgehog, which might only live about 5 years. And even now, his spines haven't fully grown in. There are still soft spots, areas where predators could easily hurt him. But more than that, he still trusts people with all his heart. That kind of trust was beautiful, but for a wild animal, it could be deadly. Alan and Anita would make sure his future was safe, happy, and full of love. And since Frankie loved being with people, but also loved to explore, they built something special for him. They created a large indoor and outdoor enclosure just for him, where he could enjoy the sunlight, dig in the dirt, and still come back inside to rest and curl up next to people. Frankie survived a lot, and somehow through it all, he never stopped trusting. His story is a reminder that even when things get really tough, there is still hope, and there are still good people who care. Frankie will be loved for the rest of his life, and he will never be hurt again. Thank you for watching. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring animal stories like this.